They laughed at me in that room. Not out loud at first, just the looks, the pauses, the way one guy leaned back in his chair like he already knew how the story ended. I remember thinking, okay, this is it. This is the moment where they decide who I am without ever asking. And yeah, I let them. For a while. Let me take you back. My name doesn't really matter, so let's call me Ryan Cole. I grew up in a town people passed through, not a place they stayed. My dad worked nights fixing vending machines, my mom cleaned houses, and I learned early that potential is a word people use when they don't expect much from you. In school, I wasn't the loud kid or the tough kid. I was the invisible one. Teachers forgot my name. Classmates forgot I was there. And when I did speak up, someone always smirked like, oh, this guy thinks his opinion matters. After college, which I paid for piece by piece, I landed an entry-level job at a mid-sized consulting firm in Chicago. Nothing glamorous. Gray cubicles, bad coffee, motivational posters that felt like a joke. I worked harder than anyone around me, not because I loved the job, but because I was terrified of going backward. My boss at the time, let's call him Mark, made sure I knew exactly where I stood. Or where he thought I stood. Ryan, he'd say in meetings, smiling that tight corporate smile, why don't you let someone with more experience handle this? Or, worse, good effort. But this isn't quite senior-level thinking. The thing is, half the time the ideas were mine, just delivered by someone else with a louder voice and a better suit. You know how that goes. The breaking point came during a pitch to a major client. I'd spent weeks building the model, running scenarios late at night, triple-checking everything. In the meeting, Mark presented my work like it was his own, then threw me under the bus when the client asked a tough question. Ryan put that together, he said casually. He's still learning. I felt my face burn. The client nodded, unimpressed, and moved on. That night, I sat alone in my apartment eating cold takeout, staring at my laptop. I could quit. A lot of people would have. But something inside me snapped, not loudly, just quietly like a switch flipping. I stopped asking how to survive there and started asking how to beat them at their own game. I didn't confront Mark. I didn't complain to HR. I did something else. I started building something of my own quietly after hours. A data tool that solved a problem our clients constantly complained about: inefficiency, wasted, spend bad forecasts. I wasn't trying to start a company at first. I just wanted proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that I wasn't small. Months went by. I slept 4 hours a night. I learned to code properly. I read contracts, watched pitch decks, studied how power actually works in rooms like that. And then, one afternoon, completely by accident, everything changed. A junior partner stumbled across my prototype on a shared drive. "What is this?" she asked, squinting at the screen. "It's nothing," I said, automatically, years of conditioning kicking in. She looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "This isn't nothing." 2 weeks later, I was in a different conference room, smaller, quieter, sitting across from 3 people who suddenly wanted to hear everything I had to say. Mark wasn't invited. That felt intentional. I explained the tool, the potential, the risks. For once, nobody interrupted me. Nobody smiled politely. They leaned in. Then Mark found out. He cornered me near the elevator's, voice low. "What do you think you're doing?" "Working," I said. "This is company IP," he snapped. "Built on my own time, on my own equipment," I replied, heart pounding but steady. "Legal already checked." He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. And in a way, he hadn't. For years, he'd seen a background character. Now, he was seeing a threat. The firm offered to spin the tool into a new internal product. They wanted me to lead it. Mark would oversee it. That was their compromise. I said no. That shocked them. It shocked me too, a little. But I was done being managed by people who only believed in me when it benefited them. I walked away with a small severance and a much bigger chip on my shoulder. The next year was brutal. I burned through savings. Investors passed. Some meetings went great until they heard where I came from. Interesting background, they'd say, which is code for not quite what we're looking for. One guy actually laughed when I told him my valuation. Laughed, like I'd told a joke. And then, slowly, things shifted. A pilot client saw results. Real results. Word spread. The same people who dismissed me started emailing asking if we could circle back. Yeah, sure. The real moment came 2 years later. A major conference, big stage, bright lights. I was there to announce a partnership that basically validated everything I'd been told wasn't possible. Backstage, I ran into Mark, older, tired, still wearing confidence like armor. He looked at my badge, did a double take. "You're the founder." "Yeah," I said. Turns out I learned. He forced a laugh. "Good for you." When I walked on stage, I didn't think about revenge. I thought about that kid in school nobody listened to. I thought about the nights I almost quit. And I spoke plainly honestly about building something from the ground up, about being underestimated, about why the people you overlook are often the ones changing everything quietly. The applause felt good, I won't lie. But what mattered more was what came after. Messages from people who saw themselves in the story, who'd been told they weren't enough, who were tired of waiting for permission. Here's the thing. This isn't a story about crushing enemies or proving everyone wrong in some dramatic mic drop moment. It's about realizing that being underestimated can be fuel if you let it. About choosing patience over bitterness, work over noise. So, I'm curious. Have you ever been written off by someone who thought they knew your limits? Did it break you or did it build you? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And yeah, I respond.